Hello everybody, just thought I'd do another catch-up video on the Vincent project that we're doing. I've probably about halfway through, maybe just a little bit over. The rear end's just about done. There's still the number plate and the rear lighting that needs to go on. And then there's also the brake linkages. I can't put the brake linkages on though until we get more of the side plate on. Still working on the wiring. Wiring's obviously a big part of the bike. Get it into focus. Excuse the camera and the handheld. Doesn't always focus the best. So the wiring's coming on. I've added in a lot more detail. As you work through the kit, there's a lot of white metal that they use for rivets and bits and pieces. Well, through my stocks of older bikes, I'm finding some proper chrome nuts I'm putting in, some brassware, some of the nuts on there that I'm using. And also obviously on all the crankcases, like I said on the other videos, I've not used the white metal crossheads. I've actually pre-purchased some proper crossheads. They're like a rivet, but they look like a machine screw. Just test fitting the seat. The seat's obviously not on yet. It's just it's not going to fall off, but it's relatively just obviously balanced on there really. Tank was on, but I've took that off again because I was sick of marking the tank. The whole idea is you should put the tank on before you put the whole rear end on. But yeah, I just kept marking the tank, and I've had to polish it out twice now. I've got glue on it once, so it's come off now. It's going to stay off. I've tweaked around with the fitting, and I can get the tank on. I'm going to have to try and I'm going to see if I can still get the tank on when I do the front fork area. I might have to fit it, but while I'm gluing wires on, it's very, very close to the tank. So the tank is finished. I'll show you the tank. Tank is obviously done. Trying to keep finger marks off it. Black is a beautiful colour to see, but it's a nightmare to keep clean. You get finger marks and dust on it all the time, so if the camera will focus on it, there you go. So, but I've had to polish it out a few times purely because I kept marking it, so it's staying off now until I need it as much as I can. Now, anybody that's obviously lucky enough to get one of these bikes, which are quite expensive bikes to own in the real thing, you're going to have to leave a little bit to what the actual bike looks like. I generally, on my reference material, I tend to I look through online and see what pictures are out there, and I tend to I'm focusing on maybe 2 or 3 pictures, but some of it I don't even like, on like some of the rear end colours that they've used. There's a lot of crankcases where the matte black, and I didn't like the matte. There was just too much matte. It just looked so dull and boring. So, as you can see, I've basically glossed the crankcases. So I've sprayed them the jet black, but what I've done, I've given it a coat of 2-pack. So I've 2-packed the crankcases, and it just, when you take it to let's take a step back, it just makes the engine a little bit separate from the heads. You get a little bit of distinguish between the two. You try to make the bike just look individual. Really, it's a bit of a one-off. I mean, some of these bikes are really one-off. A lot of the guys who used to probably have these built, they would take the base bike, and then they would change it whatever they wanted. I think I don't know whether Vincent would change colours. When you wanted to buy one of these, whether they would change bits and pieces. Maybe some of you guys would know. But I like just to tweak it so it just looks a little bit different and to my taste. So if things you've got on your bike, if you've got one that doesn't look the same, it's a different colour, I'll just call it modeller's impression really. I do tweak it a little bit. Sometimes some areas just look too much of one colour, and I like to just makes things a little bit different, break it up. So the crankcases are a gloss. I've glossed those. But I've seen online there's varying different states of I've seen them in although it's called the white shadow, I've seen a black bike with the cast crankcases in. So whether they've got a different engine from a white shadow, they've had to put that in, or they haven't painted it, or they've just modified the like a white crankcase. So I don't know, but you do see a lot of pictures out there, a lot of, as I call it, reference that I use, and I just take bits from one, bits from another, and put together a model that I like. And I think that's in generally what I've always done. And the people I've built for or whatever, they seem to like what I do, and they'll just say, "Well, we'll just leave it." And I've asked them what they're wanting, they'll just say, "Well, we'll leave it up to you." So which is really good of them. But as for this, as I said, I'm trying to keep it to a couple of photographs that I've got. But even some of them photographs, there's bits and pieces I don't like about them, so I've just changed them a little bit. So I just thought I'd give you a bit of a catch up. The way I model is not to instructions. I'll follow the instructions to, as in how are you meant to build it, but I'll work on different parts of the bike. So I'll move from doing a bit of wiring to maybe start assembling the front forks, while they're drying or while they're put to one side. I'll go back to a bit of wiring, maybe go back to the rear end of the bike. I've done a bit of the front wiring, so I'll probably work on the rear end. And get the number plate. The number plate's pre-painted, so I've got that done. So I'll probably get that on. And then obviously there's the lighting unit that I've got to fit. There's a little tail light, and then the wiring that goes through to the back. So I'll probably put that on. So I sort of move around a little bit. I don't tend to stick to one area, because while one area is gluing, even though it's super glue, it does sometimes take a little bit of time just to cure. So I tend to leave it for say 2 or 3 hours. And obviously, you can't just sit there. Well, you could sit and wait for 2 hours if you wanted, but generally you want to do something different until I'll move on to something else, do something in a different part of the bike. The bike is extremely heavy. As you can see, I've got it resting on some foam. The only other negative, and I haven't tried it on this one, this is going back to the Bruff Superior, is the rear stand, which it has a working rear stand, which is fitted, is not strong enough to support the bike. It is for pictures. If you want to do some pictures of it and leave it on there, fine. But with the Bruff, I left it on the stand, and I hadn't noticed, but slowly the rear wheel was getting closer and closer and closer to the ground. And what was happening was the actual stand itself, these pieces, the weight of the bike, because it's extremely heavy, was bowing the rear stand. And what it had done, it had touched the ground. If it had kept on going, it would have fallen over. So in the end, I leave it on a little bit of foam. I'm going to cut this one down, or I'll use a piece of plastic or whatever. So when the bike's in the display case, I think you probably noticed it with the Bruff as well. If anybody's looked at the Bruff videos, you'll see a piece of plastic, because it is really heavy. I can't stress how heavy this bike is, because it's obviously everything's white metal. The only thing that's resin is obviously the tank. So it's a fairly heavy kit, and the stands are just not strong enough. Well, the Bruff Superior wasn't strong enough. It could have been done to be made out of either brass or certainly inlaid with a steel material, just to give it some structure, to give it some strength. Because, as I say, the white metal is just, over a period of time, it's just not capable of holding the bike. So I just sort of give you a bit of a quick run on. Anybody that's obviously missed this, I know I've jumped quite a bit, because obviously I've been doing bits of the chain and bits of the wheels, and I haven't been doing a sort of a stage by stage build really. I thought of doing, I did trial me just basically building and then leaving the camera running, but I watched it back and it was like 2 hours of very little, and I think people would have fallen asleep really watching that. But I do find it's quite difficult, and I've said in other videos, I find it, me personally, difficult to work and film at the same time. It's the same with the painting. I know on the other bikes, the Kawasaki, the Z1R, I showed you the painting. It was such a no disrespect to you guys that watch it, it's such a faff for me to do, because I'm just not used to working like that I just basically just gave up. You know, I want to concentrate. I'm a model builder initially, and I'm a filmmaker last. And I've said in other previous videos, you know, if you excuse the film quality, because I'm not a filmmaker. It's all done, you know, to try and learn people the way I build, and and put our heads together. If anybody, you know, knows anything differently to me, you know, leave in the comments below. So it's something that I'm trying really for the first time to try, because there's not many of these. You do see people building Model Factory Hero kits, but you very rarely see them online. And I understand sometimes why they don't go so in depth. I've took quite a lot of pictures in the building, which I normally do anyway, just as a history of the build. And I might put a bit of a video together, and just basically like I've done in the Brough, where I've just taken basic screenshots and mixed some screenshots in. So there's a lot more photographs than I have actually done a video. So I might put that together at the end of the build, so people can actually see, you know, a sort of a snapshot of the stages of or parts of being put together. But there won't be something assembled. I know I've done the wheels and I've tried to do the chain, because people always ask, you know, how are the wheels put together and how is the chain put together. So I've tried to do a video on those, so to give people a bit more of an understanding on it is how to spoke a wheel, because people don't always show you how to. It's easy to say, well, you just spoke a wheel, but to try and show somebody how to do it is another thing. So it's something that I try to get across, because it is probably a big part of the bike, you know, putting a wheel together, and the chain is another pain really, which it's on, so which is good. When it went together, it's probably one of the best chains I've ever built really. So it just shows you the more you do, the better you get, and you do change your techniques on how to build. So I'll leave it at that. I'll say I just thought I'd give you a bit of a show around of the bike. Any comments, anything you need to know, any information you want, or if I can help in bits and pieces. If you're building one of these, or you're thinking of building one and you want to ask me any questions before you build it, or any techniques, I can only tell you the way I do it, and then take it or leave the way I do it. But if you can pull little bits of help out of there, you know, all the better. Because building is obviously a personal thing. The way I build isn't the same as what somebody else would build. But if they can take parts of it and make their modelling better, like I do from watching the YouTube videos too, you know, we're always learning. All the better for the hobby in general. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll catch you in the next video.